Hi, I'm Stephen Rains. This is a collection of poems from my work entitled The Bodiless Powers, about the death of a dear friend in 2000 from AIDS, funded by the Colo Fellowship Program through the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs and produced by Grand Performances. Adjudicate. Michael loved Judge Judy, who would lay on the bed he made daily and laugh loudly at her quips. Sometimes over the phone, he'd recount stories and scenarios from the day's episode. Judy owned a home in Naples, and Michael was on high alert for a sighting, but it never happened. He bought all of her books, one proudly displayed on his coffee table, Beauty Fades, Dumb as Forever. This was towards the end of his life, when he lost weight, eyes and cheeks sunken in, front teeth jetted out from his lip. I didn't watch television, caught glimpses of her show at his house, where he'd rewatch undiscerningly any rebroadcast shown. His body betrayed him for years. A virus broke and entered, robbed his looks, held hope hostage, murdered his lover, absconded with his future. When taking care of him, he had me schedule doctor's appointments around the show. He'd sit daily and watch Judy Schindlin create order, punish the wrong, and make things right. Again. Michael's lover, Ramon, cared for the unfit animals of the world. He filled his home in Spain with broken-winged birds, cats with limps, dogs with mange. Ramon liked to care for the things others didn't. Michael went back to America, intending to return to Spain. But then a tearful phone call came. Ramon was sick, and Michael must have it too. A week later, the phone rang again. Ramon's resentful mother telling Michael that his lover was dead. I don't know what Michael did with his suggestion of a diagnosis, with his grief over Ramon. I don't even know how long it was, weeks, maybe months, when a mutual friend told Michael Ramon was still alive and didn't understand why Michael had never called or came back. Michael called, and when Ramon's mom answered, he didn't even say hello, just put him on the phone now. Maybe it was guilt or the tone in his voice, but she complied. He told Ramon, who could only reply in whispers he loved him, was coming back that night. Michael was a travel agent in days before the internet. I imagine his fingers deftly making his own reservations in DOS code, packing bags, flying across the Atlantic, his boyfriend now Lazarus. He arrived in time to sit beside Ramon's bed, hold his lover's hand as the man he loved died again. Wig. I have a photo of Michael, boa around his neck and a ratted wig on his head. He pulled it from the trunk of his car, did it quickly, cocked his head, threw his hand in the air as if he had a cigarette, and I snapped the photo. He was energetic, alive, and we felt like there was nothing but time. We were in the apartment parking lot of where I lived with my first live-in boyfriend. All of us spent the day at an exhibition of artifacts pulled from the Titanic. Plates and evening programs stained by decades in the dark ocean, used by people who thought that they were in something unsinkable, that their party would last forever. The neighbor. He started to lose his red head of hair in his late 20s. After he kept it buzzed short, had taken to wearing baseball caps, the free kind with embroidered logos. His 9-year-old neighbor was in the news. She had a tumor, went under radiation, spent countless nights in hospital beds. Michael kept talking to me about her, bothered that she was going to die so young. What we didn't talk about was that he was going to as well. It was as if everything he wanted to say about himself, he said about her. It was unfair, unjust, senseless, and its slowness cruel. Heading out to dinner one night, he saw the family pull into the driveway, went to talk to them, offered neighborly support to the parents. The young girl was shy, dark circles under her eyes, bald from chemo. Michael loved to make someone laugh, leaned down to her, pulled off his cap, rubbed his bald head. Looks like we go to the same barber together. She giggled. They said their goodbyes, and Michael got into his car and cried. Hard. In his second to last year, Michael had trouble getting hard. Viagra was a miracle drug, all over the news and late-night monologues. But his doctor said he didn't need it or sex, not so subtly hinting that Michael was a danger to others. I told him I'd ask around. Bought 2 pills from a fast-talking drug dealer Eric was dating, who warned me of side effects: upset stomach, abnormal vision, to avoid grapefruit. I paid $40, a stretch for me at that time, and never asked Michael for the money. I mailed the pills and closed a note. I want you to be happy. I want you to fuck your brains out. Rear view. I read self-help books, then metaphysical, New Age. I believed in deities, angels, manifesting, and symbols. Everything was mystically significant. Every outside action was caused by inner thoughts. When my car's rearview mirror fell, I passionately told Michael, maybe the fallen mirror was a manifestation of my not looking behind me, or maybe it was a sign that my past isn't something to look at anymore. Michael nodded, smiled, and said, maybe you just have a screw loose. All-knowing. Chuck sent me a photo of Michael in a pool, his hand on the deck, freckled arm and fingers skimming the water, squinting and grinning and pointing to a friend. This is not the way I remember him. In the photo, his smile fits his face. There are no teeth jetting out from hollowed cheeks and sunken-in eyes. I was in that all-knowing age where I thought I knew everything and knew almost nothing. Thought Michael's aging was just about life, not AIDS. One day he called to tell me a story about trying jeans on at the mall. The 32s and 31s were way too loose. He said with excitement in his voice, I'm now wearing a 30. I love AIDS. We laughed a long time, I oblivious to the clock running down, and he deflecting fear. Every shirt tucked into dress pants or 501s to show off his slim waist getting slimmer was cause for celebration. We were young, tough, defiant, laughing in the face of death that was laughing back at us. Recorded conversation. I could tell from our conversations Michael's mind was slipping. Before our Sunday morning call, I hooked up a recording device bought at Radio Shack and recorded the conversation. I wanted to keep and preserve as much of Michael as I could. The tape I've listened to only once, the recording backed by a high-pitched squeal, and if I were to ignore that, my voice was also cringing, my laugh nervous and forced. Most of all, listening to it, I'm upset by the inaneness of my comments. I fear I wasn't giving a scared, dying man what he needed, wasn't saying what I wanted to, but didn't know how. When my grandmother was dying on that last day of my trip to St. Louis, I walked into her hospice room, told her straightforwardly about my memories of her, how I felt loved how she made me laugh, that my life was better because of her, that I'll miss her, and in big moments of my life, I'll think of her. I told her everything I learned from what I wish I said to Michael. What's after? Michael Ranucci saw a therapist for years, exploring his past lives. I can't recall how many he had, but there was always a flair for the exotic. Lakota Sioux, the Italian Renaissance. While I knew him to live up to his former selves, prepare for the next adventure, he got a trainer, went to the gym daily, became buff, a shell of his former scrawny self. It was as if while I knew him, he had two lives already. Heather had trouble differentiating the Michaels in my life, called this one past life regression Michael. We lost touch before my Michael died. Would have loved to have had his reassurance that our paths would cross again someday, in this life or the next. Michael's favorite restaurant. There's a restaurant in Boston, one if by land, two if by sea, named after Paul Revere's famed warning of enemy troops on the move. A dead man's favorite place to eat, where I will never dine. 20 years ago, Michael said, I have to take you there. And I said, I'd love that. And I would have, but I didn't believe it would happen. And looking back, he knew it wouldn't either. The year after his death, I was in Boston, but didn't go. I didn't want to sit at a table eating the food he could no longer enjoy. Towards the end, Michael lost his appetite while he fought to get on disability. When he got the money, he took Chuck to Vegas. I remember wishing it was me, wanting that time with him, to sit and eat, talk and laugh, without fear of death's invasion. Photographs. I went to visit him 3 months before he died. His kitchen table littered with photos and a stack of white legal envelopes. His cursive script spelled the names of family and friends on each one. Michael was distributing not images of him or his life, but of the people in his life back to themselves. When I left, he handed me an envelope. Photos he took or I had mailed to him stuck out of it. I regret not asking for photos of him. That was more interesting. Though now 2 decades have passed, I have a record, an answer that I've kept labeled in his handwriting. I know how Michael saw me. Mistletoe. I was invited down for Christmas, the third we had spent together. That year, he hosted dinner with family and friends. When walking from the kitchen to the living room, Michael plucked the mistletoe off the ceiling, fashioned it to his belt buckle, and walked around the party. The last time he came to visit me, he spent the last night and all the next day in bed. This had become common, his losing steam. I packed for him, put the bags in his car, he left, promised to call when he got home. After 2.5 hours, I called, got his voicemail. His call came 2 hours later. He was beaming on the other end. Driving down I-75, he was cruised. A man in a blue pickup truck signaled to Michael, who had a rainbow sticker on his car. Michael followed him off a ramp into an unnamed Florida town. They went to the stranger's small apartment and had sex. Michael said, with my baseball cap on, I don't think he realized how old I was. I didn't ask Michael if he had told him about his HIV status or if a condom was used. What I didn't say was how I resented that Michael could rally for this stranger, laid lifeless during his visit with me. The thrill in his voice kept me from saying anything. He was electric, energized by the attention, the spark of their bodies against each other. He was, once again, the object of desire. Mistletoe hanging above his penis. Michael walked around that Christmas party. He'd never told me of his rejections for his HIV status, but it must have happened. What was below that mistletoe back then was a dangerous thing. Oral sex with Michael was a joke at that party, desired by a man in a blue pickup, and it was the last time I heard happiness in Michael's voice.